Before becoming pregnant, the roaring wind carried the 8-foot alien queen laughing at the thought of mating with a human. Stinging ice fragments throughout the extraterrestrial terrain, while Commander Will Watson battled using the manual controls of his. The ship's hull moaned under the pressure of atmospheric entry as the swiftly descending shuttle systems failed. Arrive on your component one by one as the odd disturbance from this uncharted world caused havoc with the circuitry. The ground surged up to meet him as his growling muscles strained against the control yawl for a bit longer. The shuttle's remaining engines sputtered in a blanket of white, interrupted only by the shadowy forms of alien plants, died as he was about to level out, leaving him in a spooky silence interrupted only by wind. Through he was thrown against his shackles by the crash's broken hull impact, so forcefully that it knocked the wind out of his lungs as the Will found himself hanging upside down with blood dripping from a cut over his eye when the world stopped spinning. The cracked cockpit window managed to stay intact, providing a clear view of the snow-covered ground just a few inches away. He mumbled as he let go of his harness and fell to the area that was once the ceiling that might have been. Better yet, a brief inventory showed that his powered armor and the most of his emergency supplies had survived. His black combat suit, a marvel of human innovation, would, at least temporarily, keep him alive in this harsh environment. Will got dressed, leaving the helmet off for the time being to save energy, and stepped out into the snowy alien winter. To his knees, and his tactical display demonstrated the way the wind sliced through his blonde hair like frozen razor blades. He aired on all frequencies on Mayday, with the temperature at 40 degrees C. Does anyone reproduce the static that Commander Watson of the ESS Hyperion uses? It was his only in response. A flash of orange against the white background will spin on his hand as something moved in his peripheral view. He reached for his pulse gun, out of reflex, but all he saw were swaying alien trees. He needed cover and resources. The backup wouldn't last more than a few days under these circumstances, and the shuttle's power cells were damaged. About 2 kilometers to the north, his scanners indicated a sizable geological feature that might provide protection. Despite the weather as he trekked through the snow, Will couldn't get rid of the sensation that his battle training was being observed. Maintained his senses while thinking about how he got into this predicament, which the Hyperion had been mapping the sector would have gone to market for later if they had discovered an odd energy signature. Examination, but the nearly reckless will to advance has been a defining feature of humanity's galactic growth. Crack of shattering ice behind him caused the weapon to spin around quicker. The most impressive creature he had ever seen was standing in front of him this time, and he wasn't dreaming. Standing 8 feet tall, with skin the color of a sunset, and hair like streaming copper, she quickly outstripped him. If armor could be named that in some way, left little room for imagination, because it appeared to be composed of overlapping orange scales. She carried a weapon that resembled a hybrid of a plasma rifle and a spear while retaining her martial dignity, pointed straight at his chest and said, "Hello there," holding his own rifle steady, but without pointing it at her. The alien's eyes are golden and feline, so I doubt you'd be interested in having a friendly conversation. He was surprised by how well his universal translator handled her deep, melodic voice as she spoke. To invade the sovereign territory of the human Solarian Empire, you are either extremely bold or extremely stupid. "I'm just lost," he said, with his most endearing smile. "Commander Will Watson at your service. And you are the Solarian Empire's Queen Auralia. And you pause those, my prisoner's captivating eyes are examining him from head to toe, and he will continue to smile easily, in place, even though his thoughts were constantly rushing over tactical choices. Your Majesty, I appreciate the attention, but usually prefer to eat dinner before getting captured." But she let out a sound that might have been a laugh. Normal human boldness on the face of capture. Not bravado, but good manners, in addition. His armor systems were already examining her before you seized me. Although I acknowledge that the company is better than I anticipated when I landed here, alias, weapon is evaluating threat levels. Weapon remained steady, but her features briefly displayed amusement, which you might exploit to charm your way out of this situation. Circumstances I've heard about human men and their tendencies. Did you Actually, I was hoping to locate a somewhere to stay before I freeze, so don't expect to be rescued by some obedient alien woman." He pointed to the growing storm, saying, "My ass off. The company of a beautiful alien queen is just a bonus. Given how bad the weather is getting, perhaps we could carry on our conversation somewhere warmer, if you dare to suggest it." "I would never consider that, Your Majesty." But her voice was equal parts indignation and fascination. "Perhaps it would be more comfortable for them to have this standoff inside, while a particularly strong wind whips the snow between them." Despite her seeming resistance to the cold, Will noted her tiny shudder, indicating that the storm was becoming perilous. "Even by his upgraded armor standards, your recommendation has merit, and she ultimately agreed that my outpost is close by. Come along with me as my prisoner lay. But I should let you know that I'm not very good at obeying commands as they plod." Will maintained a cautious distance through the increasing snow, observing how, despite her bulk, she moved with predatory grace. I have to confess that his suit sensors showed she was producing a lot more body heat than a human would, stated, "You are not what I expected from the reports of human males after a few minutes of walking." "Oh, and what did smaller, weaker, and more primitive is what you expect?" She glanced at him, and the information indicated that your species would be hardly worth overcoming. Will chuckled. "It seems like you need superior intelligence sources, because human nature is unpredictable." They seemed to have arrived at what looked to be a solid granite face, but her touch caused a secret door to slide open. "But I don't think your people could ever seriously challenge the Solarian Daunt Empire. It's hilarious that you brought up the concept of producing a human male." However, it was cancelled. Triggered by a loud explosion from above, the mountain trembled, and ice and rock fragments started to fall mindlessly. As the entryway collapsed behind them, trapping them inside, Will rushed Aurelia through the doorway, landing them in. And for a minute, they just gazed at Heap's undignified armored shape, pressing against her taller body. Each other in the automatically actuated emergency lighting. Well, we'll state that it hasn't. Given the emergency lights, it appears that we will have plenty of time to talk about interspecies relations. Throughout the outpost corridors, the ethereal glow painted everything in amber hues that matched Queen. As she patrolled the command center, he noticed her unusual features and was compelled by her remarkable height. The communications array is damaged, so she must occasionally hide beneath lower portions of the ceiling, declared with a melodic voice that she was frustrated. "We're cut off from the outside." Will was leaning on a console. He pointed to his armor, saying, "It could be worse, but at least we have climate control and life support. The environmental systems in the readouts are stable, and I'm using up enough energy that was stored for last week's ARA. You appear amazingly indifferent to someone who is stranded with a possibly dangerous situation," her golden eyes shining in the faint light. Hostile alien queen, who might be hostile, which is better than before, smiled and said, "I've been in worse situations, but usually with less interesting company." Again, not quite a laugh. "But are you people succeeding in your constant attempts to charm others? Don't be ridiculous." But she approached him, towering over him, although I have to confess that there was something in her tone that suggested differently. "The majority of species will cower before the Solarian Empire is sorted out because you are so fascinating, reducing some of the space between them. Perhaps they didn't take the time to learn about you, and you want to. We're stuck because, as you know," her voice lowered, taking on a perilous edge. "We might as well make the most of it here together," he said, gesturing to his. "I'm curious to see what this suit's intriguing scanning capabilities reveal about Solarian physiology." Her eyes narrowed. "Would you dare to scan me? For example, too am aware that your core temperature is roughly 15 degrees higher than mine, truly beat in an intriguing rhythm, and every time you approach me, Alia's orange skin causes your pheromone levels to rise." Blushed. "A deeper shade. You're quite assuming for a prisoner, and it seems more like we're hesitant. Am I still a prisoner?" At this stage, she progressively reduced the space between her roommates until she was staring down at him from mere. I might want to remind you of your position, because mine is just inches away." His eyes met hers without flinching, which is okay from where I'm standing, but I'm open to recommendations for improvement. She let out a low growl, but it wasn't quite frightening. "You play a dangerous game, human," he said. "And I'm not playing anything that changes the electric tension between them. That was unrelated to the outpost systems." Aurelia's hand slid to his cheek, her fingers extraordinarily soft as they traced the cut from the collision over his eye. "Your species is extremely delicate," said so quickly in comparison to mine, "yet you don't seem afraid if I do. I'm worried," but she didn't leave. The thought of engagement itself is insane. Will raised up his armored hand and gently brushed a thread between our species of her copper-colored hair from her face. Sometimes, perfection comes from madness. When the kiss finally came, her skin scorched like a live wire. Time seemed meaningless against his foreign yet incredibly seductive surroundings. As they broke down barriers that should have been impassable, as they explored this new area, and much later they laid their bodies cooling in the synthetic atmosphere as they were together in what appeared to be a restroom, patterns on her orange skin, amazed at how it appeared to glow when he touched it. And yet considering having a child with her, he asked, unable to contain his smugness. "Human male is laughable." Aelia balanced herself on an elbow and gazed down at him with a look that was a combination of laughter and something else. "Deeper. You might have changed my viewpoint on some issues, and I'm glad to." She rolled her eyes in a very human gesture, "to assist broaden your perspectives." Ego was a striking aspect of my charm. It alters only her tone, not what she says. Lacking conviction, if we are saved, this will continue to be our secret, she thought for a moment. But maybe we should do more. While we wait, cultural interaction will make us smile, of course, because science. But she became serious after acknowledging that there are some things you should know about my species. Then, the outpost warning lights flashed, and a deep rumble rocked before she could go, when systems started to report numerous failures, which is not good. W. Wren will say. Aurelia's warrior instincts were already taking over as she reached for his armor. The explosion must have destabilized the mountain, requiring a more powerful shockwave to strike before the initial equipment fell to the ground. Gran felt as though the walls were under tremendous strain. "When it's time to go, will you declare that he's securing his armor?" There is a maintenance shaft leading to the surface and an emergency exit there, but the ceiling decided it was a tight squeeze to begin collapsing the maintenance shaft, especially for Aurelia's. His armor's lights will illuminate the small path as his towering frame leads the way. He cried back, "Your Majesty," as they ascended through the interior of the mountain. "I'm not complaining, considering the scenery, but you've been remarkably silent and focused on climbing." She said. But instead of sounding like she had the customary imperial authority, she sounded distracted. The shaft ended in a heavy hatch, so he put servos in his armor and held himself against the walls. Whining furiously, they were met with a blast of cold wind and snow as the seal burst with a hiss of compressed air. When they ascended the mountainside, the storm had gotten worse, transforming the surroundings into a white haze. Although the tactical display indicated that the temperature had plummeted by an additional 10 degrees, he was distracted by something else. Aurelia wrapped her arms over herself and mumbled, "This isn't right," as she began to shake violently. Salary. "Workers, don't we feel warm like this will start right away?" Examining her vital signs, we can see that her core temperature is rapidly changing. Seek refuge. He found a nearby natural cave structure and led her inside, observing how she leaned into his support. In spite of their disparity in height, he turned on his armor's emergency beacon and started constructing a makeshift camp with materials from his survival kit. Aurelia said in a voice unusually unsure of what was happening to him. He turned to look for her. Her orange skin appeared to pulse with an inner glow as she examined her own hand fascinatedly. His suit's sensors were, he added, "Coming closer. What are you feeling about everything?" As he was going mad attempting to understand the information. She noticed that the colors were brighter and the sensations were greater. His golden eyes are literally glowing now, and something else is developing that will go well with the beep. His breath caught when he received an urgent message of the biological scan findings. Aurelia concluded a mixture of amazement and incredulity in her voice with a, "You're pregnant," based on these readings. Our species shouldn't be compatible. Hence, it's unthinkable that a hybrid child might have neglected to inform our DNI that she entwined her fingers with his when he grabbed for her hand. "Are you okay?" Gushed up from her throat, sincere this time, instead of the previously controlled sound. "Well, I'm concerned. What may be that my council will experience collective apoplexy as the first human Solarian infant in history." She drew him, closer even, though the genetic purist would demand my abdication. She stroked the contours of his armor with her free hand. "But I'm intrigued by the idea that you're not upset." She grinned angrily, her fangs slightly sharp. "For ages, my people have thought we were superior. You have demonstrated that humans are not only on par with every other animals, but also have the capacity to be compatible partners in a single night. Do you realize that I'm going to surpass everyone else as the most wanted man in the Solarian Empire?" Her expression changed to one of predatoriness, which indicates that evolution will alter the future. The cave felt far warmer than either of our species could have predicted, and Will's suit kindly told him that. He observed that your temperature was stabilizing and that Aurelia's pheromone levels were rising once more, attempting to keep some professionalism. But just to be sure, we should probably conduct additional testing. She drew him closer while she conducted extensive tests, but a far-off boom cut her off. Will's tactical display illuminated with numerous contacts in what appeared to be an intriguing scientific investigation. He said, "We have company as we approach the near position. There are at least 3 ships, and the storm is likely hiding more." When Aurelia first saw the council, his face stiffened into the regal mask. They must have noticed that. She straightened to her full height and remained a queen despite the outpost disaster. Despite her messy look, they are unable to locate us together, until we. She cued his face. "You must realize that I'm not leaving you. My people won't hurt their queen in her care, but they would kill you at first sight. Therefore, I need time to get them ready." For everything exploded again, closer this time, and searchlights started to pierce through. The storm, a human town, is located 2 days south, and she proceeded swiftly. How did she press anything into his hand? "Find your folks, and I'll get in touch with you when it's safe. This will bring you back to me, so leave immediately, but pause for a moment." Little Crystal pulsed with the same inner light as her skin, paused, then drew her down for a passionate kiss. "This isn't farewell, no," she agreed, pushing him in the direction of the cave's back exit. This was only the start. He turned on his armor's stealth systems and slipped out into the rain, and the last thing he heard before the first search group arrived at the entrance to the cave was, as he made his way, Aurelia's voice was firm and authoritative, scolding her guards for taking so long to locate their queen. Through the snow, Will couldn't help but smile as the sensors in his suit and the crystal in his hand pulsed pleasantly. He grumbled as he kept an eye on Aurelia's vital signs using their recently formed biological connection. 2 days of stumbling is one technique to strengthen human-alien relations. Will's spirits were unabated by the unfamiliar wilderness, and the Alia crystal pulsed continuously. Biomonitors continued to record her vital signs, both her own and theirs, across his chest in his suit. He climbed a ridge and eventually saw the new human colony. Unlikely children. Darwin's navigation system showed that the group of prefabricated structures in the makeshift defense towers looked like. He remarked that, save from one detail, every other frontier colony he had seen was getting ready for war. His tactical monitor showed at least 3 planetary objects as he watched armored vehicles patrol the perimeter. Security at the village snatched him up before he reached halfway, down the ridge, while defense batteries were being constructed. A group of soldiers in powered armor surrounded him, and as they raised their rifles, Commander Watson heard a voice he recognized. Colonel Sarah Hayes walked forward, her aged face breaking into a rare smile. You're supposed to be dead. The Hyperion stated that 3 days ago, your shuttle went down in the Solarian territory. It's good to see you too, Sarah. He pointed to her mood clouded, and she wanted to tell me what was making everyone so ecstatic. Let's have a conversation inside. You won't enjoy this. The colony's command center was bustling with activity, as evidenced by the soldier displays. Both human and Solarian movements are occurring, and the Solarian Empire is in disarray as analysts go over intelligence reports. Pulling up classified footage, Hayes stated that their queen vanished 3 days ago, just as you crashed there. The military is organizing, and our intelligence indicates that a coup is imminent. He maintained his face neutral at all times. It gets fascinating when Hayes plays a recording of a Solarian communication about what happened to the queen. The genetic purists are calling it an abomination based on their own discourse or the fact that she is pregnant. But take note of this. A portion of their military backs her. They refer to it as the next step in evolution, but they fail to mention the true issue. Did the display depict a tall, salaried man wearing elaborate armor? Commander Pyrax is convinced that human spies corrupted the queen, asserts that the pregnancy is evidence of our biological warfare will be whistled, which is a significant jump, and he's using it to support a preemptive attack on human populations, which is why we are currently making preparations before we can react. A junior officer stormed into the room as sirens sounded across the base, saying, "Colonel, we're picking up multiple ships." Hayes grabbed her command helmet as the paid Royal Guard entered orbit. "Battle stations all troops." "Wait," Will raised his hand so I could speak to them first. "Are you crazy?" The primary screen of the command center cracked. Aurelia appeared in full royal attire, her orange skin glowing as she came to life. Despite the screen people of the New Darwin, she had an inner fire and her presence demanded attention. Said that I am Queen Aurelia of the Solarian Empire and that I am here to request asylum. Chaos broke out in the room as Hayes yelled commands and analysts rushed to confirm the message. Aurelia's gaze found him in the crowd, and Will only grinned as he felt the crystal pulse in sync with his heartbeat. "I think we need to talk about certain things, Commander Watson." Your Majesty henyored Hayes's attempt to object and moved nearer, saying, "I hope you're feeling better by the day." Her grin held pledges that caused some cops to blush, but I'm missing out. Before anyone could respond to Ed's assertion, Scientific Conversations yelled new contacts in proximity, showed up in orbit as Solarian warships with the colors of Parks. "My darling queen," High Commander Parks's hologram appeared next to Alis. Very handy. A new voice blasted over all frequencies. "The only corruption here is your antiquated way of thinking, Pix Aurelia, to find you with the very people who corrupted you. I don't think a voice could make frozen plasma stop." The council said, "You will be cleansed, the abomination removed, and the human vermin removed." And his smile was predatory. Exterminated Will approached the exhibit saying, "Hey, you're tall, dark, and fascist. You're talking about my abomination." And there was a complete stillness on all channels. Hayes covered her face in her hands, and Pyrex appeared to have been struck by a fish. Aurelia's laughing was deep and sincere. "Release the tension well, my darling." "I guess that's one way to tell you, Pyrrhus." Face twisted in anger. "And you dare to say, 'Oh, I dare,' a lot of things." Will's smile was so piercing that it could pierce through. "Since this is obviously not possible, it comes out that humans and Solarians aren't all that different." "Our child represents everything you fear, Pyrex change," Aurelia retorted, placing one palm on her stomach. Her golden eyes lit half the fleet. "And you know what else? Evolution is the end of your precious genetic purity. Helps me to know how many ships you command again." As if there were new signatures on Q Last Chance, the Queen's colors were displayed on tactical displays of Solarian battleships dropping out of hyperspace. Pix will be told to stop or investigate the precise reason why people have a reputation. The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats until Parks's ships started to power up their guns, since they were being troublesome. But whatever, Commander, Watson, would you be willing to assist me in handling this rebellion? Aurelia would be really grateful. Believed you would never question your majesty, yet the battle above New Darwin played out like a lethal ballet of Pyra's armies, outnumbered, engaged in combat with the ferocious rage of fanatics. But they had overlooked one vital element: human ingenuity. Stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dawn, the flagship of Aurelia, coordinating with both Solarian power and thanks to some inventive programming. And what he did, Fleet's combat suit interacted with Aaron's systems with ease, believed to be his recently discovered biological kinship with their queen. Your strategies are out of the ordinary. From her command throne, Aurelia saw him maneuver ships in ways that made her tactician's head spin. He responded, "Humans are excellent at thinking creatively," his fingers moving across holographic controls. The Imperial Dawn trembled as Pyra's flagship hurled a volley of... Before the salaried gunners could respond, plasma torpedoes had already computed an intercept solution that Aurelia purred and then gasped, one palm squeezing as the enemy's own weapons were turned against them. Will was at her side immediately, suit sensors probing against her abdomen. "What's wrong, kid?" Her golden eyes expanded in wonder. "And they're getting farther away." "Our genetic makeup appears to have combined to cause a faster than usual development cycle." A medical Elia waved him aside as the officer hurried forward with scanning equipment. "I'm okay, although the feeling is strong yet not." She noticed Will's anxious expression and grinned. "Your offspring is as you are my queen and my love. I'm impatient." Her chief advisor interrupted us, "Getting notifications about your condition. From all of the Empire's important systems spread well, Aurelia stood tall and somehow even more dominant. Despite her obvious pregnancy, the bridge staff frantically opened a channel to all frequencies, both human and Solarian. Will moved to stand next to her in order to comply, observing how she abruptly leaned against him for the Solarian's support. "Empire," she started, her voice bearing the burden of millennia of power and respected human beings like you. "See for yourself what others consider impossible. The unification of our species with love, not via conflict or diplomacy." Perak's voice broke through the network's propaganda, saying that people have corrupted our queen by saying, "Oh, shut up." The sound of sporadic laughter reverberated across both fleets, interrupting the conversation. "You're simply jealous, reducing the stress, even when some of Pyra's own ships appear to falter in their formation. The traditional methods are evolving." Aurelia went on, "Evolution requires it of my child. Our child is not the..." She paused and grimaced, marking the end of Solarian purity, but the start of something bigger, a bridge connecting our peoples. Little increase in her biological values indicates that the pregnancy is moving forward quickly. The medical officer murmured, "We'd better wrap this up quickly, rather than months," and then addressed the fleet. "Take note. The first human Solarian is about to be born to your queen. Anybody who has an issue with it can speak with me directly. And just so you know, I've got a quite remarkable record of handling impossible circumstances." The crystal pulsated warmly against his chest, and he threw. Their bond, I could feel Aurelia's amusement. She teased and then doubled over when another contraction struck. Several officers moved to assist my queen, but Will was quicker in removing her despite their disparate heights. Bay stared at her and said, "Now the battle," to which she objected. "We'll wait. You have orders, Chief Advisor. Don't let Pix escape, but don't try to murder him either." The advisor bent profoundly, "Like you dominate my attention, for example." As he carried Alia from the bridge, Lord Will smiled. "We'll determine titles. I have a rendezvous with Destiny later, today, and you're having too much fun in the delivery room, Aurelia." The woman who scoffed at the notion of having a child with a human male says, "I'm not laughing now." No, he acknowledged that they could feel the crystal pulse in time with their heartbeats and something more. "But I think our child will have a great sense of humor on their side." The combat went on, but inside the Imperial Dawns, a new form of history that would permanently alter both species was about to be written at Medical Bay. To get ready for something unprecedented, a team of human and salaried professionals rapidly put together their work. As though reality itself was holding its breath in, their equipment recorded energy levels that were off the scale. While the medical staff worked, Will held Aurelia's hand and remarked, "It's not exactly how I planned to." As the pregnancy progressed, her laughter transformed into another moan. "Meet your family. I'll make you pay for all of your awful jokes after this is over. Promise." But a new sensation interrupted her remark, causing all of the lights in the hospital bay to flicker. "Oh," Alia whispered. The pulse between them was blindingly intense. "This is going to be fun." As Aurelia's labor proceeded at its supernatural pace, Will, the clean white walls of the medical bay throbbed with vitality, had remained by her side, his combat suit sensors giving the mixed team of Solarian and human medics real-time data, who were fascinated as history was presented to them by my queen, and Help High Commander Pyrex has breached the ship's defenses and is entering via the doors. Will's. He is, of course, as the tactical display was illuminated with numerous hostile signatures traveling across the Imperial dawn. Alia gripped his arm with such force that it would have crushed unarmored bones to stop him, since this day wasn't. "Interesting enough. Keep our child safe. I won't abandon you." She squeezed the pulsing crystal into his hand, "And we're linked. Keep in mind that aside from ... despite her discomfort, her amused golden eyes twitched. I would like to see you use human ingenuity to counter that haughty ass." The ship trembled from internal. Will's display of pyrotechnics revealed that the forces of Pyro were convergent on their position. How many minutes at most did the doctor spend speaking to the chief medical officer? "The energy readings are incredible. I'll give Aurelia a passionate kiss before holding that thought in my mind, Your Majesty," she called after him, but she had a quick errand to run and didn't want to seriously damage my ship. Claims that the medical section was already a war, and he would activate his suits and close the doors behind him. The stone hummed against his chest in some way, enhancing his entire battle protocols. Neural link to the armor's attention, he communicated this throughout. "The ship. We have party crashers attempting to spoil a very important delivery, Commander Watson. Let's show them some humanity." Hospitality responded quickly, with both salaried and human crew members organizing and coordinating their efforts. Pyrex forces encountered an unparalleled blend of human and technological threats thanks to his tactical network. Pyra's voice boomed as she described the outstanding guerrilla tactics and Solarian martial prowess. "You know, the abomination must not be born through the ship, but feudal." Will responded as he prepared makeshift explosive charges for a person who was so fixated on genetic purity. Talking a lot about how my child felt unworthy caused the taunt to have the desired effect, and Pyra's troops broke formation. The explosions weren't intended to kill, rather to force them precisely into Will's trap as they charged forward carelessly. The crystal pulsates stronger where he wants them to, and he will feel Aurelia's presence in his head expanding. Before a lightning strike, my lord, something was getting more intense, like static. Hearing a salaried officer scream out wasn't all that strange. "Hi, Commander. Parks is using the secondary access shaft to get closer to the medical bay." Smiled. "That's exactly where I want him." He arrived at the back door of the medical bay, just as Pyrex exploded through the human Pyrax hissed, and the enormous Solarian commander, decked out in ceremonial war armor, stood aside. "This is beyond. You will truly be drawn, and I believe that here is the precise place where I should be. Understand why you're making such rudimentary attempts, since I'll keep seeing how my children were about to make a spectacular debut, and the pulse of the crystals had coordinated with the ship's power fluctuations." The doors of the medical facility flew open in a burst of dazzling light energy, like liquid starfire into the hallway, and in its wake, reality appeared to bend. Will initially via his connect with Aurelia to create a new, pure, and potent consciousness that combines the best with both species. The energy from the crystal broke and combined with the phenomenon when cradled in Aurelia's arms. The light-faded Pyrex stood frozen, his armor systems entirely lifeless behind him. As they spoke into the stunned silence, their child's inner light shone brighter than the stars. Unquestionably, got my hair, sweetheart. A flawless combination of Solarian and human characteristics revealed eyes that moved. Every electronic gadget in the ship responded to its presence by updating its systems, which ranged from deep blue to molten gold. It's difficult to change in real time, Parks murmured. So keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means, Auralia answered in a weary but victorious tone. The ships, without any input from the crew pictures, communications abruptly started transmitting on all frequencies. When the child appeared on all screens, we would recognize that it was impossible to ignore or reject its mixed nature. Evolution necessitates change, not only for our species, but for everything. The Fallen. Command ER glanced between the infant and its parents in his own image, and Pyrex, you can either adapt or go extinct. Finally, without armor, he fell to one knee and whispered, "My queen," in a harsh voice. Emotionally, I was mistaken. Sure, she agreed that you were, but maybe that's why we were all mistaken in our it. Required human boldness and Solarian pride to teach us a better path after each species had attained its peak independently. We will be by her side, admiring their child's flawless characteristics. Therefore, let's talk about those titles we previously discussed, Commander. Don't try your luck. Yes, Your Majesty smiled, but I believe that formal titles are a little out of date now that the newborn made what may have been a laugh, and all of the ship's lights pulsed in response. You know in Will that Aurelia's face softened as she gazed at their infant in the Solarian, but she still needs to name the little reality warper. According to tradition, exceptional children are named for the time of their birth. What would you call this particular occasion, she said. Grinned for the first 3 months after their child was born and will be adjusting his official diplomatic uniform in the Imperial Dawn's private chambers. The suit in particular seemed odd even though it was intended to preserve human military honor while enhancing Solarian aesthetics. The source of my love. Aurelia's pleased voice was his struggle with the ceremonial collar in contrast to his combat armor. In her royal attire, she stood magnificently in the doorway behind him, holding their kid in one arm. Putting these clasps on when they were made for 8-foot-tall aliens, he complained politely as she sailed ahead. The man, who had no trouble figuring out other things, complained about her skillfully tightening his collar with her free hand, features of Solarian anatomy. That was unique. He smiled up at her. I was extremely driven child, formerly known as Aurora Dawn, but affectionately known as Rory. By every technological gadget in the room flickered in response to the human crew's laughter, although she was only 3 months old, displayed the most desirable characteristics of both species, with Alia's vivid orange skin and flowing hair, together with Will's resolute chin and blue eyes. Her height was increasing more quickly than that of a human youngster, but not at salaried rates. Alia reminded everyone that the diplomatic summit begins in 1 hour. Since you were the one who informed the Sarian High Council, are you prepared to embarrass the conservative groups once more? He waggled his eyebrows and looked straight at your previous suitors, demonstrating the astonishing adaptability of human guise. She chuckled, and the sound still made him tremble. I was just reporting the facts. Aside from the quantity of, since then, the number of requests for human Solarian couplings has increased. Removed Rory from her embrace, astonished that their daughter had started interacting with his suit systems. Right away, you definitely must inform the whole Imperial Court about my extraordinary endurance. Would you rather I told a lie? Leaned down to give him a kiss, highlighting the height difference and emphasizing how crucial it is for our people to recognize the advantages of genetic diversity. A tactful aide's voice cautiously avoided speaking, and they discovered the lesson of interrupting in person after overhearing too many diplomatic conversations between the royal. The representatives are coming, therefore it's time to face the music, my queen, my lord, and the couple. Returned Rory to Aurelia, prepared to demonstrate to the galaxy what the future holds with you, constantly taking the lead. The Imperial Dawn's diplomatic chamber had been altered to accept both paid and human delegates of the diverse staff working in unison. Newcomers will note the Ayaz staircases as they arrive. Multiple things simultaneously. The grateful looks from salaried and human ladies, the barely disguised jealousy from different male dignitaries, and the manner in which Pyaats are currently. Their most ardent supporters proudly stood at the attention of Earth's delegates in the voice of the Solarian Empire. Aelia carried with ease through the chamber. Today, we are gathered to formally establish the alliance between our peoples. Will continued with a sneer that caused several Solarian elders to squirm uneasily, built on more than just politics. Aurelia's golden eyes did shine with mischief. As many of you have probably heard, because of our compatibility, species has demonstrated exceptional ability to generate a wave of charged whispers. The throng, dozens of human-Solarian relationships had bloomed each in the 3 months since Rory's birth, generating exceptionally talented children. The conservative groups were unable to dispute the advantages of improved technology. The traditional jokes about human beings' fast evolution and unparalleled genetic stability, males who are too little, are officially retired, according to one particularly audacious Solarian noble, who made the announcement to elicit knowing laughter. Should I be worried about how many of your people can personally? Someone will raise an eyebrow at Aurelia from the crowd. Verify that I'm jealous of them. His smile never turned wicked. They're not. The room exploded when the Queen of the Solarian Empire yelled my name in 3 distinct languages. Among the gasps, giggles, and many curious whispers, Rory decided to use that opportunity to show off her abilities by fortunately removing the more intimate parts of her parents' first encounter to create a holographic display. Our kid possesses her father's gift for dramatic timing, as evidenced by Aelia's seamless recovery. The ensuing conversations were unlike any in galactic history, with customary limits of decency being repeatedly broken when both species accept their new reality and witness their hybrid child casually tampering with sophisticated A's. Technology alternated between Solarian war songs and human Liz. It became a potent emblem of their shared. When I unexpectedly crashed on your planet, you know what will be said to Aurelia during a brief recess. No. She traced a finger that would ultimately alter the path of 2 civilizations, down his chest, causing his formal wear to feel too heated. What did you do? To be honest, all I wanted was to make it through the winter, but instead you survived me. But even though the night is still young, my brave smile turned predatory. Human Pix decided to arrive at that time with a number of urgent documents that needed their attention, but he stopped short at their sexy position. My queen, my lord, maybe I should come back later. We were only talking when Aelia stood up straight, but her hand stayed firmly on Will's shoulder. Considering human-Solarian interactions in great detail, Pyra's reaction indicated that he regretted having previously opposed their union, if only because he now had to see their shameless. He stated resolutely and professionally that the Genetic Council had submitted their most recent findings on flirting. It appears that human-Solarian partnerships have a higher success rate when they are emotionally. The scientific phrase for compatibility will be questioned innocuously. Think that Pyrex was created by Aurelius using the human term asexual chemistry. Clearly struggling to keep his cool, Rory chattered joyfully in her mother's arms, casting a little glow. Demonstrate that the child captured everyone's interest and that her powers increased every day. Personality, the ideal fusion of human flexibility and salaried pride. You crashed on my planet's best crash landing, so Aurelia Ahmed, all of this. Never will he put an arm around her waist or his upper body. Even still, I maintain that before you chose to capture me, you were evaluating a potential. They are referring to it as a threat, and now their light-hearted banter has been cut off by the entry of additional ambassadors who are keen to talk about the potential for extending human salaried relations to their own systems. The future loomed ahead of them, full of opportunities in the kind of chemistry that had previously transformed the galaxy. and their daughter persisted in becoming a living example of what may occur if someone had the courage to laugh at impossibilities.